Hopefully everybody was safe in the storm last night. Good to see everybody here. We'll start with item 1A, which is the invocation. Vice Mayor Carroll.
We're thankful for this town and its residents. We're grateful for all who work for the betterment of our community and all who serve on its behalf. Let those who work here and those who serve here be ever mindful of the town's vision and mission statement. Grant this council the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement, sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, personal peace in our lives, and joy in our task. Amen.
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 If you'll join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 1C, the roll call, please.
Mayor Foley,
Here.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Here.
Councilmember Atwater,
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Here. Let the record show Councilmember Altieri is absent.
All right, thank you very much. Item 2, are there any requests for reordering, deletions, or emergency additions to the agenda? If there are none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Item 3A, presentations and proclamations. We have a proclamation for National Safe Boating Week. We have a lot of very important looking people down there in the audience. If you come up and please introduce yourselves, we'll then proceed with the proclamation. Probably pretty timely given the weather we had last night. Hopefully everybody was safe.
Absolutely, sir. I'm Commodore Gary Barth. I'm the Flotilla Commander for Flotilla 5-6 in the Vero Beach, Sebastian area. Tommy?
Tommy Augustin, member of the flotilla. I have fly aloft as an auxiliary pilot.
And Tom McCarty, I'm the Flotilla Staff Officer for Public Education. I would like to invite you to our next training class, which will be held May 20th, first day of National Safe Boating Week.
Terrific, thank you very much. And, you know, in not 20 words or less, but for those of the new folks here that may not know what you do, can you just describe what you do?
We're the Coast Guard Auxiliary. We're the civilian branch of the Coast Guard. And what we do primarily job is boating safety. We teach boating safety classes. We go out on patrols. We do everything the Coast Guard does with the exception of law enforcement. So anything else that the Coast Guard does, search and rescues, we do everything. The only thing we don't do is law enforcement itself. And we're an all-volunteer group of about 22,000 nationwide.
Terrific, thank you. Well, let's proceed to the proclamation. Proclamation states, whereas for millions of Americans, including those in Indian River shores, boating continues to be a popular recreational activity. And whereas during National Safe Boating Week, the U.S. Coast Guard and its federal, state, and local safe boating partners encourage all boaters to explore and enjoy America's beautiful waters safely and responsibly. And whereas safe boating begins with preparation through basic boating safety training on procedures, equipment, and outing planning and preparation. And whereas hundreds of people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, and it is estimated that the vast majority of all boating-related accidents are caused solely by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat, equipment, or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of these fatalities are caused by drowning, and many boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today had they worn their life jackets. Now therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Indian River Shores, Florida, does hereby proclaim the week of May 20 through May 26, 2023 as National Safe Boating Week and the renewal of a year-round effort to promote safe boating. And we urge all those who boat to attend a safe boating class, practice safe boating habits, and to wear a life jacket at all times while boating. So thank you so much. It's signed by each of the members of council. We'll present you with the proclamation, and we thank you for everything you do. Oh, okay, let me come down and, sorry.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Don't worry.
You probably more now than.
Sam, should have done that. Thank you. 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 Thank you.
Okay, item 3B, we have a presentation on a requested ordinance changes in the police firefighters defined pension plan. Ms. Bonnie Jensen, the attorney for the police and firefighters defined pension plan, is going to make a presentation. So the floor is yours.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm here today to ask you to consider incorporating into the plan by ordinance a state-mandated benefit. So we do have a PowerPoint presentation. So in 2019, the Florida legislature incorporated into the provisions of the plan, into the provisions of the statutes, a requirement that boards consider 21 cancers, and I've listed those in the presentation, as presumed to have occurred in the line of duty for firefighters. This is an irrebuttable presumption. So Chapter 112 of the Florida statutes has provisions in it dealing with public employees. And so the conditions for retirement for public officers has a level of presumptions. So 112.1816 was the new provision that was added for purposes of the cancer. 112, 175, 185, which are the laws that govern the pension plans, have long had provisions in it for heart disease, hypertension, tuberculosis, and meningococcal meningitis considered to have occurred in the line of duty. All of those presumptions, though, are rebuttable. So annually, our pension plans have to file a report which details the information that's happened year to year. In the most recent report, they have asked a question as to whether we have incorporated these presumptions into our pension plans. So as a result of that, the pension plans are being amended to incorporate this particular provision. The drafted amendment incorporates the provisions of 112.18, which is a rebuttable presumption of duty connectedness for tuberculosis, hypertension, and heart disease, and hardening of the arteries. Chapter 112.181, which is the rebuttable presumption of duty connectedness for tuberculosis, meningococcal meningitis, and hepatitis. The 112.1816, which is the cancer presumption that has generated the change here. A rebuttable presumption of duty connectedness in 175 and a rebuttable presumption of duty connectedness in 185, which is for heart disease, hypertension, tuberculosis, and hardening of the arteries. So the presumption language is added to the duty disability benefit. You do not have a specific duty death benefit within your plan. I detailed there for you what the death benefit actually is within your plan. So in the 29 actuarial valuation, so following the legislative session in which the presumption was added to the law and mandated to be applied to all firefighters, we added that into the cost of the pension plan in the actuarial valuation. And to account for that particular benefit, the actuary assumed that where they were assuming that 75% of the disabilities would be duty related, they upped that number to 90% based on this change in the law. So that resulted in an increase in the normal cost of the pension plan of 0.06% of payroll, which in 2019 amounted to $905. So the amendment that we're asking you to consider would add this state mandated benefit. So, something that applies to the pension plan without regard to adding it, but the state wanted it to be added because it does have a cost associated with it. The pension plan and its actuary recognized that there would be a cost, and so we already incorporated that into the plan. But in 2019, it was presented to the town. I'm not really sure what happened. I'm going to say COVID, because in 2020, it was supposed to be on an agenda, and I think just, things were discombobulated during the COVID times. We kind of, recognizing that there was a state mandated application of it, that none of the other presumptions had been incorporated into the plan over time. It had all worked very well, but now that the state is asking whether it's incorporated and wants the date of the ordinance that's implementing it, we're presenting it for an amendment at this point.
All right, thank you. I know this is just there's no action on this today, it's just a presentation, but I think it's appropriate that questions be posed, even though there's no action questions. So do you want to start, Mr. Atwater?
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did the last union negotiations with the public safety union, did we not include a life insurance benefit of $100,000? That's my recollection, that the union did not ask for that, and we put that in.
I'd have to look at that.
I'm pretty sure.
We have a town death benefit that goes across the board outside of the.
Yeah.
It was done in the prior one.
Pardon me?
It was done in the prior one.
Oh, okay. I just want to put on the record that there is a fairly decent, I don't have any problems with this, but there is a fairly decent life insurance benefit. When we did the negotiations that the union asked for, we just gave it to them. So just want to note that.
And there are other benefits. These are just the only ones that are in the pension plan with regard to death benefits. There are others, so there are state mandated benefits, there are federal benefits that are available to police officers or firefighters who die in the line of duty.
Okay.
Thanks. Vice Mayor?
Bonnie, nice seeing you.
It's good to see you too.
Would you help us to understand why this proposed statute is irrebuttable and the others that are listed here are classified as rebuttable?
It's the way the legislator implemented it, it's the way that the legislature implemented it. I think that ultimately it's very difficult for firefighters to be able to tie their cancers, their particular cancers, to their job. So I think that the legislature at that point wanted to make sure that they were going to get the benefit of the law that they were implementing. So essentially there is a downside, by the way, to the membership. So irrebuttable presumptions, there is no determination that it occurred in the line of duty. So, it's just presumed without question that it occurred in the line of duty. And that does endanger their ability to receive those payments tax-free. So that was the trade-off that the firefighters made in order to, I'm assuming, in order to get this implemented into the law.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Smith?
No questions.
No questions. My questions were primarily answered, but I just had one question. Is there, what's the financial consequence of the town on this? It's probably Heather's question.
I believe it was already addressed. It's already being addressed in the actuarial impact statement. So there is no change to what.
And no increase for the
It's already
base,
it's already reflected in there.
This isn't going to hurt our first responders.
No.
Okay. So that basically says this is just cleanup, something that we hadn't done.
Correct.
Lastly, just in anticipation of putting this on the agenda for first reading at the next meeting, have you and our town attorney agreed on this proposed ordinance so that you're both signed off on it?
Mr. Mayor, I've been in receipt of multiple emails from Ms. Jensen and have been reviewing them. In light of this presentation, I hadn't come to any conclusion yet, but certainly Ms. Jensen knows what she's doing, and I'm familiar with this section of the law and believe it's appropriate, given the dictates, quite frankly, from the state.
All right, so we can anticipate on the May agenda, we'll see this for a first reading?
I believe so.
Okay.
And I'm happy to work with you if we need to make any changes.
Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. Thank you, and this is a relatively easy one for us, so we'll see you next month, hopefully.
All right, great, thank you very much.
it was pretty interesting to me how late Florida was in adopting the irrebuttable presumptions for a number of these diseases, because in the other states I came from, particularly New York, Connecticut, this has been the law for ages. And it's kind of interesting because if there's a rebuttable presumption, insurers, being what they are, don't like to pay out on claims. So if a firefighter develops cancer and he's got to prove it was that noxious fume from an event 23 years ago, all the people are gone, all the documents are gone.
Sure.
So there's a logic to it, and as a citizen, I think it's the least we can do to compensate our first responders.
Yes, we asked them to do a lot.
We do. Thank you.
All right, and I'm glad all of you are safe from yesterday.
Yes, thank you, and you too. Okay, item 4, are there any comments from the public regarding the agenda items? Mr. Corpar, you're the only public, so no comments on it? Okay, thanks. All right, we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mayor's report, I just have a few brief items, actually 5 brief items. The water case, we had the hearing in the appellate court. We are going to be waiting for a decision on that case. The time frame is never a precise science, but I think our counsel has given us an indication that it's going to be at least a few months in their best guess before we get a determination. I would say that I thought the argument went well for us, despite some observations by some other folks in the press. There's a danger in reading too much into an oral argument, in my experience, but all the issues were presented to the court. I was impressed that, the chief judge in particular seemed to understand one of the very central issues in the case, which was, how do you determine whether or not you're losing money? Is it on an enterprise basis, or is it, in that one discrete line of reuse water? So I think it went well for us. I think there's, again, always a danger in trying to predict outcomes based upon what you see in an argument. Item 2, Florida Gas. I would say I asked our staff to make sure that within 2 weeks we had done everything we needed to do on our side in order to move forward with a franchise agreement and then the follow-on to the easement. I will defer to the town attorney and the town manager on the status of that. My understanding is that through our outside counsel and our staff, we have presented all the paperwork that we deem necessary to Florida Gas, Florida City Gas, to get this project rolling. Last I heard, and you can correct me when it comes time for your report, there was a legal department snag. The Florida City Gas legal department did not want to provide a franchise agreement unless we charged our residents a fee. I'm not really keen on charging people fees to begin with, and to charge them a fee that we don't really feel is necessary at this point is a non-starter, at least for me. I don't know about my colleagues, but we'll hear more about that. But we've done everything we can. It's hard to dance when your partner's still sitting in the chair. So hopefully we can move that along, but we're doing everything on our side. Yesterday, the town manager and I met with our new county administrator. We had basically just to welcome him to the county and tell him a little bit about the town of Indian River Shores and our council. He was invited to visit the town, which I think he was appreciative of. So I'm sure we'll be hearing from him in the not too distant future among all the fires he's putting out. And if he arranges a visit, we can probably figure out a way for everybody to show them their community or divide it up so we don't have a sunshine law problem. But I'm looking forward to working with him as he is with us. So item 4, the beach erosion. We had a standing room only audience. I've got a lot of feedback from our residents and particularly Mary Alice. I'm sure you will cover that in your committee report. But by all accounts, it was a good meeting. County the county got the message, anybody who was there got the message, and, you know, there was also a lot of positive comments, only positive comments about you on the dais and what you did. So all good stuff. So you bet. Item 5, it's hard to believe it's been 2 years already, but Jim Harpring's been here 2 years. So we're at that time where individual council members will be receiving a contact from Jim to basically give your feedback about his position. My understanding is that Jim has dispensed with that kind of robotic form that we used to have that I suspect if anybody wants to use that form, they can, but I find it personally just to give verbal feedback, and then we will have a conversation about it, hopefully at the May meeting, about the feedback that we've given Jim on his job performance for the year. Okay? And that's it for the mayor's report. Any questions on anything I've said? All right, item 7A, the Councilmember Elwood.
Okay, so as everybody knows, I'm a town representative on the MPO, and there is continuing discussion, maybe a little dissension about where to spend money on roads in the county. And so what I asked was, let's take a look at areas where there seems to be more crashes and focus our limited budget on that. You know, if you think about, and the chief knows this, up in New York, they had something called CompStat, which was used to map crimes to focus resources. And I said, why don't we do the same thing when it comes to crashes, given that we had a limited budget? So they pulled data, I think this is primarily from the sheriff's office, and mapped these from 2017 to 2021. So the first page you have here is just every, what they call a roadway event. And as you can imagine there, that for the most part, it's more heavily trafficked roads. But then if you flip to the following page, you see marked fatal events and serious events. And so what I want to have the MPO staff look at over time is to really begin to drill down on these and say, okay, do we have a hot spot here where we have an issue when it comes to traffic problems, where we can mitigate that by maybe having a wider bike lane, putting a turn lane in for cars, and so forth. The third page just maps out the serious and fatal events. But what I thought was good for our town, and then you have a page with bike events. If you go to the final page of this, what I did was, and it's a little murky because I took a screenshot, but I looked at the crash data for Indian River Shores over the same 2017 to 2021 period of time. And we have some issues here. I don't know if there's much we can do about them. If you look where there appears to be conflicts, it's where you have cars coming out from the communities to the west and east of A1A, such as from JI Drive, JI South enters, right here on Fred Turk Drive. But what I thought was interesting, and hopefully the deputy chief will give us an update on it. We've been trying to get a pedestrian on-demand light similar to what is down at Great Twig Road in Vero Beach with the intersection of A1A. And that is just off this map. I tried to create another one, I just couldn't get it to work. But if you look at what's going on in CVS and 7-Eleven, you can see all those green dots in that area and down to Bahia Mar, the Village Beach Market, which is about a half-mile distance. If you went back to one of these earlier maps, and I could blow it up, if you look at Gray Twig, where they put that lighting, that on-demand pedestrian light, you have basically the same number of occurrences there. So it's my understanding that FDOT rejected our proposal to put one of those in. So maybe this is something we can bring to their attention to point out that you know, explain what the differential is between what's going on at CVS and 7-Eleven, particularly when we have a bike path, a pedestrian path that the town owns, go out to tracking station park there, which is, I think, would be the ideal to put it there, because it would help people walking across the street to get to that pedestrian way, as well as if we could add a little bit of a sidewalk to get down to the 7-Eleven and CVS, and if they want to take the other tracking station park. So hopefully this will give us a little more data to ask them to revoke their decision. I don't know. Would it be okay, Mr. Mayor, if the deputy chief got up and talked about that now, since we're on this topic?
Absolutely. I think it's perfectly appropriate. Yep.
So we've been in contact with our District 4 rep. Her name's Veronica Altuve with FDOT. She's the bike and pedestrian specialist. We had a survey done last August, September, which obviously is our low traffic months. They did a survey, got a letter saying that they rejected it due to lack of crash data and also lack of traffic. So we asked them to come back out in January, February, when we had a higher traffic presence on A1A. They did. And I got another rejection letter about 2 weeks ago stating that we don't meet the crash data and the traffic on A1A. I'm in the process. I think the only other option really now is try to go above and beyond the District 4 and go right to the state and start writing letters, but that's the status of where we're at. I attend the MPO Technical Advisory Committee meetings, and I brought it up. Mr. Freeman from the MPO committee, I mean, they've been great. They're all on board with it. It's just a matter of getting FDOT on board.
Mark, how come they got that little light just down from there then? There's like nothing happens down there, right? Well, what data did they use for that?
The same data, but again, I think it's, you know, I'm trying to be the squeaky wheel now because I think that's really what's gonna get, you know, something done because, yeah, I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a crosswalk there. And then we even gave them a range. It didn't have to be exactly at 46th Place. I mean, we could even come up to Sea-Watch, you know, just somewhere in that range. And we used the beach access as another option, you know, to say that everybody from the west side A1A are going to use that lane to cross to go to that beach access that runs just on the south side of Surf's Edge. So we got options, but like I said, I think it just, at this point, we're just going to have to start writing to the Tallahassee FDOT and have them just come down and make a ruling that, you know, they're going to have to do it.
And it's ironic, we have the best data available because of the license plate camera reader. Vero Beach doesn't have that data. Right. And also, when they're doing the reconstruction of A1A south of Beachland, they're putting these things in. It makes absolutely no sense. So that's why, in part, why I wanted to get this data from the MPO. The MPO has never looked at things this way, actually looking at the actual data as opposed to, yeah, I think we got a problem there. I mean, so I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention.
Is there any way to, you know, appeal this administrative action as like arbitrary and capricious, or, you know, maybe it's time to get legal, you know, start raging. I appreciate, you know, all your efforts, but if you're backing up against a bureaucratic intransigence, then, you know, potentially, you know, we need to not just have you kick it up the line, but also, you know, also let them know we're serious about this, particularly with, you know, new buildings going in behind the CVS, and, you know, the CVS, it looks to me like that may be actually a bit more attractive for people to now pull in because it's going to be kind of a newer and improved thing. It sounds like it's worth, you know, kind of putting all hands on deck here and trying to move it along.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, generally speaking, administrative type of decisions or rulings in Florida governed by DOA, Department of Administrative Hearings, based in Tallahassee, and work through the administrative regulatory process. I have colleagues that I certainly have worked with before that it's a very, very finite area, as you might imagine, administrative law, and almost universally it's in Tallahassee because of all the agencies being based there, even with districts such as District 4. But I certainly believe that would be worth investigating.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. if I
Go ahead,
may just
please.
interrupt. Can I suggest before we do that, that we write a letter to the FDOT District Board Director, Jerry O'Reilly, when I gave my presentation back in December about trying to force the county to put in as a default standard wider bike lanes. He was sympathetic to that, so this probably hasn't bubbled up to him, just at a lower level. Maybe if the deputy chief can put a letter together with all the data that he presented to our license plate camera reader data and send it directly to the Jerry O'Reilly. He's located down in Fort Lauderdale, but he does occasionally. Maybe try that first before we do the legal route and get people pissed off at us.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm fine with that. I mean, I know Mr. O'Reilly has a lot of stuff on his plate, and, you know, the squeaky wheel is worth it, so, we certainly we're trying it, but, I'm constantly frustrated by the somebody's gotta die before we do anything kind of approach that they take to this, and,
Unfortunately, I mean, we
you know,
had one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I work with Mr. Atwater, absolutely.
Perfect, good. And then, May meeting, we can then see how the progress is, and month should be enough to get some kind of feedback, but, let's keep open the option of, you know, kind of kicking this up the line a little bit, okay? All right, thanks very much. Thank you, Councilman Atwater.
That's the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any other comments on that? All right, let's move to item 8A, ordinance number 558, which is the BFE plus 2 and floodplain administrator. This is the second reading. First of all, is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment on this, is there any discussion from council further on this item? If there isn't, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
And let's have a roll call vote on this since it's an ordinance.
Mayor Foley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Let the record show motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you. Item 8B, ordinance number 559, tree protection officer. This is the second reading. Is there any public comment on this item? No public comment being seen. Is there a motion to approve? Or
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mayor Foley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Let the record show motion passes 4-0.
All right, thank you. Item 8C, this is now the first reading of an item that was first brought up at the last council meeting regarding qualifying dates. So this is ordinance number 560. The town attorney, I believe, has to read the
Yes, sir.
title. And,
Yes, sir. Given that it's a new first reading. Yes, sir. Ordinance 560, an ordinance of the town of Indian River Shores, Florida, amending Article 1, Section 32.02 of the Code of Ordinances by providing for specific qualifying dates for candidates, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
All right, is there any discussion on this before we?
Section 3 says passed on first reading on March 30th. Is that correct?
This would now be the first reading. Technically, we did have a first reading, but given the fact that the substance changed, this would now be the default first reading. So that would be amended, yes, sir.
And the publish would be amended.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So when we come back for second reading in May, it will reflect those. Those are ministerial and fast. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, anything further on this? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Foley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Atwater,
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater, Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Let the record
Oh,
show it
do I
passes
get
4-0.
two votes?
All right, I think it's clear we have a 4-0 on that. Let's move to staff updates, the building official report and statistics. Mr. Harpering, are you going to
Yes.
add to the
There's Mr. Martinez has an appointment, a pre-scheduled medical appointment, family. So there's really nothing no additional information to add to the numbers or the reports.
Things are staying pretty busy, it looks like, so I think we're going to see this as a trend for a while.
I do. I think the numbers look consistent, and though counterintuitive to some, those that live here know that a lot of the actual work does occur in summer. So we do expect to see some consistency here.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for Mr. Harpring on building matters? No. Okay. Item 9B, the town treasurer report.
In addition to my report that I've already provided you, we are beginning the work on the budget, and I just got all that stuff from the department, so I will be getting that to the town manager, and we'll be discussing it this month. I have gotten the money from our insurance company for our Dune crossover. The total cost for the boardwalk was about $40,000. We got about $39,000. So FEMA, and I'm still working with FEMA to try to see if we can get the sand costs recovered. I'm still working with them. One item of note is at the pension board meeting on Tuesday, they changed one assumption. They're going to use the projection method for doing their actuarial assumptions, which means when we get the report in January, it'll be for the following year, not for the current year. There's no smoothing method change or any over the 5-year. They just changed to the projection method for how we do our contributions. I think that's about it. And that's about it on that.
All right. Anything for Heather?
Could you elaborate on that, please?
The contribution method. Right now, how we do the actuarial statement, it is for the current year. So we didn't get the actuarial statement till January of this year. So we had to get all the money back, and the members had to pay. So at that time, prior to that, we were doing like 5% from the members. When we found out in January they had to do 9%, we have to get back all that money for the difference. The projection method, everything will be done ahead of time. So in January of 2024, when we get the actuarial statement, it'll be for fiscal year 24-25. So it's actually they're projecting out what the contribution is going to be rather than trying to catch up. That's the change. It makes it easier for budgeting purposes and also for the members to know what they're going to have to pay in the following year. So that was the only that I know of the statement changes that they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for our town treasurer? All right, Heather, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9C, Public Safety Department. Chief Roselle, how are you? Good morning. Fine, thank you.
It's been a relatively quiet month. Traffic cameras are showing us that the town is starting to empty out. The whole island is starting to empty out in a quick manner. One item of note to report is that we had one of our officers involved in a crash a couple of days ago. It was a head-on accident. A drunk driver hit him while he was out on patrol. So he was not hurt bad. He's a little bit sore. It did not total the police car, which was good. The drunk was almost twice the legal limit when they took him over and tested. So, but he's doing well. In fact, he was back in work at a class at school yesterday. A little sore, but he's doing good.
Well, thank God he's okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like something out of a bad movie. You know, a drunk driver hits a police car. But,
yeah, we don't get a whole lot of drunk drivers out here, but for one drunk drivers will always pick something to hit that you never, the tree that's out there that a million people pass a year, and they'll hit that tree, the pole, and then, like I said, a police car.
What time of day was this?
It was right about 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Just as it was getting dark.
Where did it happen?
Right in front of Johns Island.
All right, well, the important thing is the officers safe and on the mend, so.
Okay, I'll convey it to you.
Give them our best, regards. Thank you.
I will, for sure. Any questions? Thanks.
All right, thank you. Item 9D, Public Works.
Good morning. So we had a sinkhole develop in our sidewalk southbound right in front of Indian Lane. DOT did come out and mitigate the problem with, temporarily with some patching and some filling going into the hole. At this point in time, I've been in contact with the gas line company to make sure, they're going to go through and investigate what the problem may be. And till then, it's been a daily process of just phone calls back and forth. So I will stay in touch with that one and update you guys further on that. Other than that, don't really have anything else going on besides, the stormwater did look good. We did the storm yesterday. The water receded pretty good throughout the whole town, so within the 6-hour timeline, so that's a plus.
Terrific. Anything for Larry? No, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. 9E code enforcement, I think we got Officer Mike Cran's report.
Yes, he's actually in the field on a call out right now, but there's really nothing additional within the report other than to thank the chief for allowing Sergeant Mike Krantz, in this role. Very, very important. He has done continues to do a fabulous job, as you've seen in the reports, and I think the follow-up, the responsiveness is markedly better with Sergeant Mike Krantz's involvement in that role.
Yeah, it's palpable. You can just see it, and to think that a lot of these things were going unnoticed, particularly buildings without permits and things like that. It's kind of.
And I'll have a little follow-up on that during my report as well.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just briefly weigh in, Sergeant Mike Krantz has been great to work with as well from the legal side. We were going to probably have our first special magistrate code enforcement hearing next month, but Sergeant Mike Krantz was able to get compliance, which is always the point of code enforcement prior to the hearing. So again, I just want to compliment him on behalf of myself from the legal perspective. It saves time and energy and money for the town by getting compliance. So
no doubt. All right, item 10, town attorney report.
Mr. Mayor, I need to make a point of order. I had to double check, and pursuant to the statute for municipal ordinance enactment, I believe we need to have an actual reading of the title for the second readings on both of those ordinances. So I respectfully request if you can just go back very quickly, revisit those two. So I would ask that we reopen ordinance 8A just for the reading and then reaffirm the vote as appropriate. That would then be ordinance number 558, an ordinance by the town of Indian River Shores, Florida, to amend the Land Development Code, Title 16, Chapter 165, Floodplain Management and Damage Prevention, as stated in ordinance 548, to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 150, Building Regulations, adopting technical amendments to the Florida Building Code as stated in ordinance 548, providing for applicability and inclusion, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. So again, my apologies for not catching that earlier.
No problem. Any public comment? Roll call vote again.
Do we need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mayor Foley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
The record show, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll very quickly move into 559. Ordinance is ordinance number 559, an ordinance amending chapter 167.02, tree protection B, definitions of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Indian River Shores, providing for an effective date.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Mayor Foley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
The record show, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Now to move on to three items in my report. Again, as a reminder, the Florida legislative session will end this next Friday, a week from tomorrow, May 5th. Right now, they are finalizing, as I understand, the budget, and there's a required 72-hour cooling off period. So expectations are that that will be finalized by no later than Tuesday, so that they can adjourn on time. They can extend if need be, but we're in the final days of it. Separately, as the mayor alluded to, the appeal and the litigation there. Number one, as an immediate update, I just checked the online docket, and of course, we still don't have any decision yet. And to your point, Mr. Mayor, and despite any other reports, I stand by my position and advise the council that there's just simply no way to predict. Even the 4th District Court of Appeal has on their very own website that it could take anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer, but there is no prescribed time period. And I also wholeheartedly agree with your assessment, and council was all there and could see it live and in person as well as available on YouTube. I thought our council did an excellent job presenting the case, but of course, oral argument is only a very small snippet of the process. The process is much, much greater than that, with all the documents provided briefs and appeals, but as soon as we would receive anything, certainly it'll be distributed to the town. However, in light of that, I'd like to respectfully ask that we have a shade session to be able to discuss either the outcome of the appeal or the potential ramifications of that. So in light of that, let me make sure I use all of the magic words. Honorable Mayor and members of the Town Council, pursuant to Florida Statute 286.011, I respectfully request an attorney-client meeting regarding the appeal in the matter of the Town of Indian River Shores versus the City of Vero Beach, appeal case number 22-1646. The requested date would be May 24th, which is a Wednesday, May 24th, 2023, in the early afternoon. Those present will be the Town Council, Town Manager Jim Harpering, myself, outside counsel Bruce May and/or Kevin Cox of the law firm of Holland & Knight, and a court reporter. Pursuant to Section 286.0118B, the subject matter of the meeting shall be confined to settlement negotiations or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures. It is estimated that the meeting will last approximately 1 hour. Again, as a perfunctory requirement under the statute that I have to announce that, and as for a time, again, respectfully requesting that it would be in the early afternoon, but I'm certainly, and Mr. Harpering, I believe we checked our calendars, would be available anytime basically from noon on. But I defer
You
to
can do
council.
that by notice after.
I'd be happy to. I didn't know, and they can coordinate with our town clerk and town manager to coordinate that time. As far as your individual availabilities, once that's available, we will publish a notice. We would have an opening meeting like we do on all shade meetings in here. Then we would move, in all likelihood, to the community center where we would have our closed session, which would be reported, come back and close the meeting. But again, happy to answer your questions.
Do we have to have our outside counsel in person, or can we do it by telelink?
I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do it by some version of remote. But again, we still don't have a clear directive from the state and the Attorney General's office on that. I was hoping even to see something in this legislative session allowing for that. It's become more acceptable, but there's no still clear ruling on that, so it may be that they would have to be in person.
Okay, well, you'll have that worked out.
I will have that worked out for you and provide you a clear answer.
Obviously, if they don't have to drive down.
Yes.
It's better fee-wise and,
Yes, sir.
time-wise.
And Pete, you said two subjects. You said first would be settlement negotiations, and then what did you say after that?
Or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures.
Okay.
It's a pro forma requirement that he has to read that.
I read that directly from the statute, yes, ma'am.
But that doesn't mean that there are any settlement negotiations. In my opinion,
Yeah.
there are not going to be any.
Okay.
So it's just,
All right.
that's just a requirement he has to read under the statute.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, the date would be the Wednesday immediately prior to our regular town council meeting on May 25th.
Well, I can't do that date. I'm flying back from Portland, still involved in settling my sister-in-law's estate who passed away, so I'll be flying all day. Why can't we do it the following day when we have the town council?
Yeah.
We can.
There's no reason we can't.
Yep.
I don't want to suggest there isn't. I was just simply.
I arranged my schedule and make it back
Yes, sir.
for town council. Unfortunately, I cannot do it today.
Okay, so why don't we schedule it, and, to get Pete off the hot seat, I suggested that a separate day when everybody was going to be here would be good, because we'd have.
No, I have no problem. It's just the way it worked.
Yeah, we'd have total focus on on those issues and not the distraction of the council meeting. But I'm fine doing it that afternoon. You could just pick a time that works for everybody immediately following the meeting, so.
Yes, sir. I will work with the town manager and the town clerk, coordinate that with all of your availabilities and make that as efficient and effective as possible.
Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Works for me.
Okay, great.
Finally, Mr. Mayor, thank you again. The last issue is separately in light of the recently imposed increased rates for potable water and sewer / wastewater by the City of Vero Beach. I request guidance and direction from council on possible further action up to and including authorization for legal action. So again, similarly to when the federal lawsuit was filed in the antitrust case, this is in the same vein that we are asking for, between myself and town manager, authority to engage in the appropriate means, including up to filing legal action. I should also mention, related to what we just heard, the requirements for a shade meeting. we cannot have a shade meeting related to that item unless we're actually in litigation. And I'm sorry to say that, it's just directly from the statute.
So just to clarify, this does not mean that, you're going to file suit without further direction from counsel.
100%.
You just want authority to start thinking about the different strategic implications of doing one thing as opposed to another, in order to be able to advise us at a later, either special meeting or council meeting.
Yes, sir. This is prophylactic invest. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Terrific. Who was it you that said these things are like a kabuki dance? It really is astonishing that attorneys can't advise their clients in confidence, but that's just what we're living with. So I have no problem with giving you and Mr. Harpring the authorization to spend funds to talk to our outside legal counsel to start preparing strategic advice for counsel in terms of if, when, and how to file a lawsuit over the broader rate cases against the city of Vero Beach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is anybody?
Well, I just want to ask a question. Is that a little premature? Because won't that decision be predicated on what happens with our appeal?
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Well, exactly, and, but they need to start thinking about that now, because if the decision comes down next week or the week after, I'd like them to have, already prepared, if this happens, we file this kind of pleading, if that happens, we file another kind of pleading, so. It's just, okay, all right. Do you need a motion on this, or is it just?
No, Mr. Mayor, because we won't be taking any effective action. It was just for the authorization to at least go in, and again, it would be direction, strategy, and just for the benefit of council, this is directly from the statute. Any board or commission may meet in private with the entity's attorney to discuss pending litigation to which the entity is presently a party before a court or administrative agency. So again, I wish I had the ability to, and I'm certainly available to meet and talk with any of you individually at any time. But collectively as a body, we cannot meet, in my opinion,
Understood.
Unless we're in litigation.
Okay.
Understood.
So you want to have a strategy meeting to talk about the different possibilities after the appeal?
Yes, and if I can just very briefly, and I do not want to get into too many details.
No, okay.
We're in a public meeting, but the outcome of the appeal, which is only based on the reuse water rates between the town and the city of Vero Beach, we may win the appeal, and what would happen as a result of that, either being remanded for further adjudication, and they lose the appeal, and what we could possibly do there, and all of the variations in between. And so that's what I'm requesting, a strategy session to talk about what those things could be, and if this, then that, from council's perspective.
Doesn't it seem a little late? I mean, shouldn't we have done this before?
Well, again, I think that we still have I didn't want to be premature because we may not even have had oral argument in the appeal.
Okay.
Now that I would say are at the 11th hour of the appeal. Again, we don't have the decision.
Okay.
So I didn't want to be premature, but I don't want to be too late. I believe the time is right.
And it's fresh in people's minds.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All right.
And I have no questions on that, or are we?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. That's it?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Town manager report, Mr. Harpring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that we referenced earlier the Florida City Gas franchise agreement, and it's absolutely correct. We provided everything, all our requests, information to council, and we just await something from them, though I do know that there were going to be some discussions today or tomorrow. So hope to have something deliverable at the May meeting, and certainly information in advance of that.
Can I just ask a question? It seems extremely odd that they have a problem with our proposed franchise agreement, given that we're not asking for like a franchise tax or something like that on our residents. Is it just because it didn't fit their legal template?
It seems odd. I think it is a little odd. The parameters of the document that we were looking at were consistent with other municipal and county agreements. It was a little odd and surprising all around, but we're moving forward.
Our legal counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, strongly advised that we not proceed with our franchise agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, and we have indicated to through our council that, in no uncertain terms, that the easement that they seek for the regulator station is contingent upon having a franchise agreement with the town to protect the town's interests on infrastructure and a variety of other topics.
Right, that's an important point that everybody understands. This isn't just a straight franchise agreement to use their easements to deliver gas. They also want to use town property for temporary storage and transmission and things. So they're asking for a significant amount that at least our legal counsel has told us would put us at risk if we did not have in place a franchise agreement that has those boring lawyer things like indemnification clauses if there was a leak or toxicity leaching into the soil that could require us to do an environmental remediation. So I'm persuaded that this is not one of those things where our legal counsel is just being what lawyers do and digging their feet in. This is something that's important for us to have to protect the town and its residents.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Just a brief update on our CRS. We are preparing, staff is reviewing a document, a mail-out, informational mail-out, which could garner us, depending on the review and the evaluation, up to 300 points. With the passage of the second reading of BFD +2 today, we would have garnered another 125 points for that. We fully anticipate to be over 2,500 points and eligible for Class 5. Our 5-year review cycle, when that would occur, is next year. We don't have the actual date for that because we're still waiting to hear when they're going to schedule that. It could be February, March, April, May. We just don't know. But our 5-year cycle is next year, and we fully anticipate having a sufficient number of points and documentation for all of our activities to request and be awarded the Class 5 for CRS. The status of our overall ordinance review is that we've had a number of meetings, internal and external. We're actually to the drafting point on a number of things that we're able to do. And again, of course, process-wise, we will move with any sort of public delivery of these, workshop, open house type things as we get them together. But we are moving along on that. And I will defer to Councilmember Smith on the Sector 4 and status update, other than to amplify what the mayor said and thank Councilmember Smith for her activity and her, her presence on the dais. It does make a difference for the town. There is a meeting scheduled May 2nd, Tuesday. I will be in attendance. I know many others will. It's the BOCC meeting at 9 a.m. And that is a follow-up to, and I'll again defer to Councilmember Smith, that's a follow-up to some discussions and actions that occurred at the Sector 4 meeting with, again, with some follow-up to BOCC to look for.
Is this a public meeting or?
Yes, no,
We'll talk about that later.
It's the actual BOCC meeting, their regularly scheduled council meeting.
So is it on the agenda?
I actually haven't looked at the agenda yet, but I was told as recently as yesterday, I don't know if it's come out yet on email.
Okay.
But it was supposed to be on the May 2nd agenda.
Okay.
I will, of course, confirm that. I just don't happen to see that right now.
All right.
And with that, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you so much. Any questions for our town manager? All right, let's move to the council committee reports. Why don't we start with
me,
since we're on erosion and beach and shores.
Okay.
Councilmember Smith.
So as you've all heard, they had a grassroots uprising from an infrastructure committee formed at Johns Island, and from that grassroots committee, they sent out emails to everyone in Indian River Shores that's in Sector 4. So they encourage everybody to come to the Beach and Shores Preservation Committee meeting, which Jim and I decided that there's going to be a lot of people there, so they moved it to the other chambers, and they had well over 130 people. It was like standing room only. Bob was there, a lot of people. And they changed the order of the meeting. So it was good that Eric, our Natural Resources Indian River County gentleman, started with Sector 4. And he had a great presentation, which you've seen. And it's, let's see if I could just, he did the what's still needed. He showed everyone the requests that we've been made and the requests that's still pending. He talked about the obstacles for Sector 4, easements, which Sector 4 has said that won't be a problem, but it's all what happened in Sector 7. They lost all their funding. I'm not so sure that's going to be as easy as everyone on that committee thinks. Obviously funding, and then a big part of the obstacles is the access. We have one beach access. There's no parking on that beach access. The parking is up here. There's no toilets. But we have to make sure that that beach access is a public beach access, that the public can get to it. So I know it's on a road that goes down there, but people that live on that road have to understand that they bought a home on a public beach access road, and there's nothing that we can really do about it. If approved, the entire area of Sector 4 would not get funding, mostly the beach access area, which is why I'm talking about we have to make it available to people to get to the beach. Their hydrographic survey that they were going to do, which was so important, that showed we gained 10 feet of sand, which is hard to believe. The dune damages were between $3 and $5 million. So they asked for questions from the audience, and the way I perceived it was everybody looked pretty glazed after Eric's presentation, because it's very complicated, and there's a lot that's been done so far. So there was a lot of questions from the committee itself, and then some of the residents did ask some good questions. And after the meeting, Ermin said specifically how wonderful it was to see everybody there, how polite they were, how interested they were, and it was great to have the people come to the meeting. So at the end, they made a motion to ask the Board of County Commissioners to have Indian River County consider a dune restoration project for Sector 4, which means that would come out of their funding. A second motion was made.
Well, it's really our taxes.
It's our taxes, yes,
We
you're
pay
right.
taxes for that.
We pay taxes for that.
We pay taxes to the federal government, the state, and the county for these
Right.
beach restoration projects. And my opinion is, because of this designation and whatever bureaucratic frustrations that I may be feeling, we're not getting our fair share of the tax revenue that we pay for these projects. So thank you for your efforts, but it's not the county's money, it's the taxpayers' money, and we're taxpayers. So
If it's on the agenda, do you think I should go to that VOCC meeting?
I'll leave that to you and
Jim?
Jim to decide. Yeah,
Okay.
if I'm available, I would like to go as well.
Because I know I had a doctor's appointment early, but I could come later. And then they made a second motion to also ask the VOCC to start a feasibility study to see if Sector 4 could be an engineered beach, which would also be some funding from our taxes. So supposedly it's going to happen in the next meeting, and we'll see what they say. So it's not going to be easy.
Thank you for I know it's a lot of work. I just have a couple of points. In looking at, Eric's presentation, it looked pretty close to what we were talking about doing with the town of Orchid, looking at all the available technologies for preventing the erosion.
Right.
So, I think, we should think long and hard whether or not we proceed with the town of Orchid on that. If we already have availability of the current state of the art, maybe we just, hire our own expert at some point if we feel it's necessary. Have them take a look at what Eric put together and say, is there anything else out there that, we could be proposing? Because it looked pretty comprehensive to me.
Yeah, I think it would be. I even think that the infrastructure committee from Johns Island, I don't know what they're doing engineering-wise, but it's all right here. I mean, it just seems like it might be a little waste of money.
Yeah,
but I don't know that.
Yeah, I'm basically saying that I had 3 months ago, never mind. Because it looks like it's already been done.
Yes, sir.
So,
And the wanted advisory committee member, Michael Saul, he's from Tallahassee, and he's been involved with the, Bob, you would know. Was he with, the what?
The Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah,
He
so.
was either the secretary or assistant
Right.
secretary.
So he strongly suggested that the Sector 4 be a dune project. And apparently that would be less expensive to do and easier to do because the sand's going to keep washing away. And if you shore up the dune, it'll help a little bit, but it's all going to go away eventually. So it's tough.
And, you know, there's nothing like contacting the commissioners individually before May 2nd on a motion. So it sounds like you've got a really good email list, and who's ever coordinating that, I mean, you can see the impact of that. We're very diligent, we pay attention to things, but when I get emails from 30, 40 residents, I'm doubly attentive to making sure that I've kind of thought through the issues and made myself aware of the position of these people that are bringing the point to us. So it's just a suggestion that, you know, perhaps something going to the individual commissioners may be worthwhile, so that when they hear the presentations from the floor, they actually have the context to understand that, you know, there are hundreds and hundreds of people that are supportive of this measure.
So, and you don't think that Commissioner Ehrman will tell them that at their meeting?
He may or may not, but, you know, I wouldn't want to take a chance. You know, chairman of the meeting, he's kind of chairing the meeting, and I'm sure he will say that, but I don't think there's a substitute for individual commissioners getting word. I don't know what you fellows think. I mean, I agree. I think, you know, emails in the inbox are terrific, and to the extent Mr. Corpart can help with that too, I think it's.
You were going to do a letter writing, but were you going to go after the commissioners?
Currently, the only people we've written is Aaron Brawl and Ron Bragg.
Okay, so you have the other three.
And a infrastructure committee has met with 3 or 4, 5 county commissioners already.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
That's good. That's all I have. Anybody?
Question, Mary Alice.
Yes, dear.
You made a reference to Beachcomber Lane.
Yes.
Only public access.
Yes.
Did I understand you correctly? Did you say that if the work if funding were available, it would only be to the public area?
What they said was even if, this is what his slide said, even if Sector 4 gets classified as critically eroded beach, which is what we want, the entire stretch of Sector 4 would not be eligible for FDEP cost-sharing funding, okay, due to the limited public access. And that's why I think it's so important that Beachcomber is a public access and needs to stay that way.
Yeah.
Or we'll never get anything.
And just to that point, I think that is total nonsense. I've heard this, excuse, I'm using this word very carefully, this crap from the county before when I used to go to these meetings. They want to do only 660 feet in each direction down. The county spends a lot of money in Sector 4. If you look at the beach access to Sector 7, Sector 7, the only beach access in the south part of the county is if you go down to the 7-Eleven, down there below 17th Street, and go across that road, there's public beach access there. Right. The next one is Round Island Park. And yet they spend money down there. So I've heard this stuff go on, and when I bring it up, they can't answer my question. I'm really just kind of infuriated about this. Plus, on top of that, they're spending money to put sand around a seawall. Anybody that knows anything about a beach replenishment knows that the water scours all the sand out. You might as well put the money in a pile and set it on fire. So I'm really getting a little tired of this. I brought this up in the meeting, and again, you can't get a straight answer out of the county on it.
So what do we do?
I don't know. I think you're doing everything you can do. Just one other point, when the mayor talked about our taxes being paid, Heather updated an analysis she had done previously for me. We pay approximately 12% of the county's taxes for 4,000 people here out of, what are we up to, 165? So just something to keep in mind when people say that. So that's all I
But what does the tourist tax have to do with that then? I thought the tourist tax to the county was used for the beaches. Is that different?
That's different. That is assessed on basically hotel rentals.
Yeah, but that was supposed to be used for beaches, wasn't it?
Partially, yes. And also
Okay,
the
so they have
support
that
of the
money
Chamber
too.
of Commerce, too. So,
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, the Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments, I attended that meeting. Presentation was given by Commissioner Smith from Morton County on biosolid projects that Morton County is spearheading, that basically takes human waste and treats it so that the phosphate becomes inert, better for the environment. The problem with these projects was their scalability. Commissioner Smith was presenting new information that these projects are becoming smaller and smaller on scale. So if you're interested in human waste and how we can deal with it, there's some information that I took from the meeting, and you can have it as part of the materials I have. On the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities, they have a luncheon coming up next month that I will be unable to attend, so I forget, are you my alternate on League of Cities, or?
yeah, I'm gonna be out on the West Coast.
Okay.
So, somebody else.
And any member of the council can attend the lunch if you're so inclined. I don't think anything critical is going to happen at that meeting, so don't by no means feel the pressure to attend, but there's a lunch down, I think it's in Stewart this time, after the actual board meeting. Lastly, I attended the by technological hookup, the Florida League of Mayors, of which I'm on the board. Pretty pro forma meeting, it just generally elects officers and directors, and essentially we set an agenda. There was some recap on issues of legislative importance to municipalities. We'll see what happens after the session, but items of note: 3-day turnaround required on building applications. That means if you don't reject or provide comments within 3 days of a building application or development application being submitted to a building department, it's deemed approved. So guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a lot of rejections just because they can't get around to it. So not well thought out legislation. The legislation we were following on regulating water utilities and electric utilities that are run by municipalities has, basically gotten nowhere. It's not going to be of any comfort to us, and it reminds me of something that I think Councilman Elwater alluded to a while back, and it's that we're on, it's good to be on these intergovernmental committees, but they don't always represent the best interests of municipalities like us. We're a very unique place. We have an issue that, for example, larger cities are completely opposed to us on regulation of utilities and fairness and franchise agreements because they're cash cows for them. So we need to be diligent and make sure that our name is not on materials that are going to legislators saying, yeah, we're all for this. So we've done that and we'll continue to do that. It will be kind of winding down for the summer. I think a lot of these intergovernmental committees don't meet as regularly. The highlight of the summer is the joint barbecue, and I say this every year, but if you want a good piece of meat, it's in Okeechobee, and it's a fun event. If you want to make it, I'll make sure everybody gets the date, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing to report.
Nothing?
I'd like to give you folks a quick update. I attended the Public Safety Pension meeting on Tuesday, so you have a document in front of you, just real quick update on performance. If you look at box you see the stock market coming back, which is good news. The bad news is that versus the public safety pension funds benchmark, they underperformed by 161 basis points. Longer term, they continue to underperform versus their benchmark, as in box B. If you look across those numbers 3 years, they're 3.8% lower than their benchmark, and 5-year 339. Turning to box C, their equity performance for the first 6 months was pretty good. It was very good on an absolute basis, market coming back. On a relative basis, it was okay. But again, longer term, again, looking on box D, looking at the 3-year performance, they've underperformed by over 6 percentage points in 3 years and 5 years. So nothing to write home about there. On the flipping to the next page, if you go to box E, fixed income has done decent for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Performance has been good. And then just an update on real estate. Since if you recall, there was I brought up about how these private real estate funds, I thought their performance numbers didn't make a lot of sense relative to what was going on in the public market, and that's still the case here. A lot of numbers here, I'll go through them pretty quick. If you look at box F, it shows the trailing 1-year performance was negative 3.76%. You look at the REIT funds, index funds from Vanguard and Fidelity, they were down 20%. So this was, again, the situation where they were marking up the value of properties through most of 2022, which we all know, you just have to look at the Wall Street Journal, made no sense. But then if you look at the trailing 6 months performance, that arrow fiscal year to date, now they're starting to catch up, negative 9.34% for the last 6 months, and yet the stock index funds are actually showing positive performance. So again, not catching up well. But here's the thing I would love to point, I didn't have an opportunity to point this out to the board. They go and buy these private funds, which are very illiquid. Look at G. Over 3 years, this real estate funds have performed at 8.41% was their performance. That is before expenses. That's a very important thing. When you look at it net of expenses, because they charge fairly high expenses for an institutional fund, they charge 1.1% a year. Basically, you multiply that by 3. That's not exactly the math. It'd be compound. It'll make it look worse. Their 3-year net of expense performance for the real estate fund, only 5.11%. They bought the Vanguard Index Fund, or Fidelity, or anybody else's REIT fund, would have been 9.83%. Go with these private funds, and now they're trying to get their money out. I said to the board, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to reduce their real estate exposure. So is everybody else. So what happens is, unlike these REIT index funds where, say for example, the board said today, I want to be out of real estate completely. They make a call to Vanguard or Fidelity and say, give me all my money back. They'd have it the next day. They're subject to a gate because everybody and his brother is trying, these institutional clients is trying to get out of these real estate. It's going to take them months, I'd probably say 2 or 3 years if they want to get all their money back out. So just something, I want to bring to your attention since from a financial perspective, it has such a large impact on the town. So that's all I have.
Bob, do they talk about what the fees are for managing all of this? They don't talk about the fees, and it's a lot, right? And the fees are charged every year no matter what happens.
Yes.
And that's a lot of money that comes from the fund or that we're paying, right?
Absolutely, because we paid it. Look, it hurts the public safety officers as well. Because, but it hurts the taxpayers here even worse. What I find very annoying by the consultant, he always refers to the gross performance, never the net. And I had brought this up previously. I didn't say anything this time around. But if I was sitting on this board, I'd say, what are you talking about gross performance for? I can't spend the gross dollars, only the net dollars. So.
Well, how come they won't talk about what their fees actually are? How can that be?
I don't sit on that board, unfortunately, because I would be bringing it up. Even their equity funds have fairly high fees for institutions, relative to other institutional pricing.
So can we suggest it to the representatives?
I don't know. There's only so much you can do.
I remember a number of council meetings where we asked them to look at the fees, and we have no no power other than to make suggestions.
I don't understand how we don't have any power if we're paying.
Talk to the legislature.
Yeah, because we appoint the 2 members, which you vote, we reappointed. I voted against both of them. They don't bring up fees. And the other 2 members are chosen by public safety, and then the 5th one, who doesn't even live in this town, is picked by the other 4.
So all we can do is persuade. So anyway, thank you for the report.
Okay, that's all I have.
Call to the audience, item 13. Anybody have something they want to let us know about? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned until May. Good night.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll reopen. I didn't see your hand, sorry.
You didn't raise it.
Yep.
Good morning, all. I'm Dave Christakis. I live at 966 Sunrise Terrace. And I wanted to ask the City Council to help us with the tenementization of Indian River Shores with the property directly across the street. It's falling apart. The eaves are falling out. It's infested with rats. We have homeless people that sleep there overnight. I won't let my wife take our dog out at night. It's got broken out windows. When I bought my property in 2015, it was a nice, clean little building. There was a proposal for a sign out in front with a building that was going to be built there. I wish it wasn't as big as it was. And apparently the financing fell apart and it didn't get constructed. And it's been being used as a staging ground for all the projects in town. We put up with 1.5 years of what we called the chain gang road crew, working on our roads out in front. And from 10 o'clock at night until 6 in the morning, we'd have anti-aircraft lights shining on the front of our house. We live right across the street. We had domestic squabbles that broke into fights the police would have to be called out on. We had all of their trash that they'd drop on the ground and the south wind would take it into my property. And I beg you, please don't allow for staging like that to ever take place again there. I know that you changed the zoning from residential.
Where exactly is this?
Yeah.
Directly across the street.
And who's it?
That's
Who
a
owns
bank
it?
building.
Is that?
The office. It's still, it was basically there's still kind of a small house and there's an empty lot, just literally, if you look out the window, it's
Yeah,
that piece
okay.
right there.
I thought
It's held privately.
Right.
Right now.
And
well, you know.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Thank you. So you don't need to wait for a council meeting. You can go directly to our town manager because we have.
And talk to.
Yep, we have code enforcement. It sounds like there's some code enforcement issues there.
We had looked
There's
at,
a nuisance and,
yes, sir,
yep.
just so council aware, we did have a look at code enforcement, had a review of the building and the structure. It was a number of months ago. We'll do it again. It was a different code enforcement officer, so I'll have Sergeant Mike Krantz head over there, take a look at the property and the structure and report back individually to council.
And I'm sympathetic to the comments about staging. So, you know, if we do allow this in the future, we should, my personal opinion is we should have some, you know, fairly tight safeguards on that to make sure that they're not creating a nuisance and that they're cleaning up after each other and you're complying with noise statutes and things like that. So thank you for your comment.
But thank you very much.
We'll review it.
Thank you.
The sand on the beach is spreading all out on our stairs that I built. We've lost 2 steps. You guys, I think, have lost 4 steps with the sand spreading out on the beach. And the beach is looking pretty good right now. And the police are doing a great job, and we haven't had problems with shark fishermen. And I love living in your city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are adjourned. So- Great job.